So last week, the 16th mainline Mobile Suit Gundam series was announced with a title that most people cannot seem to pronounce. The trailer showed off a bunch of cool footage, introduced us to the characters that we are going to be following, the staff behind this series, and of course, a pretty controversial mobile suit design. Today though, we're not going to be talking about what was shown off in that trailer, but actually some stuff that leaked out afterwards via the Italian Gundam website for this series, giving us details about the timeline, the general plot, some ideas of more mobile suits that are going to be included, and there is a hell of a lot to dive into. A lot of this is very juicy information. But before we get into that, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you are a fan of Mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also head on down to the comments section below. After I've talked about some of this information, I want to hear what you guys think of it, because like I said, very juicy information here, and I think a lot of people are going to have some very interesting opinions on what it could mean. We'll kick things off with the story that was detailed on the website, and it is worth noting that this stuff has now been taken down. It was not supposed to be out this early. But the synopsis reads as follows. In the year UC, Universal Century 0079, the Space Colony Cluster Side 3 on the far side of the moon, now calling itself the Principality of Zeon, declares its independence and launches a war against the Earth Federation. A young hero of the Principality forces, Char the Red Comet, managed to capture the Federation forces' state-of-the-art Gundam mobile armor. Piloting the Red Gundam, he drastically changed the course of the war, leading the Principality forces to victory. It's UC 0085, 5 years after the end of the war. Amate, a high school student living quietly in Side 6, faces a turning point in her life when she meets the smuggler Nyan and a boy named Shuji who pilots the Red Gundam. Just from those 3 paragraphs, there is so much to unpack there, particularly those first 2 paragraphs anyway. The most obvious thing, the first thing to talk about, is the fact that this is set within Universal Century. However, it's very clear that this is an alternate version of that. So the general starting point is kind of the same. Federation forces, Zeon forces, 0079, that's when it starts, which is when the original Gundam series starts. You've got Char in here, a major part of the Universal Century timeline, particularly the first Gundam series. So the general setup is there. It's very, very similar. But you have this major kind of twist, turning point, where Char gets hold of the Gundam. Paints it red, because of course he does, because it's Char. And then using that mobile suit, he ends up winning the war for Zeon. So essentially in this version of UC, it is the Zeon forces that win as opposed to the Earth Federation forces. So that in and of itself is obviously a major departure and difference. And there will be more to talk about concerning that, and obviously concerning Char as well. This essentially tells us that, well, in this series, there's a good chance that we could see characters from that original Gundam series, but like different versions of them. So, there's a chance we could see Amuro. Now, it's not clear like the role that Amuro plays, or whether he is kind of involved here, because it's not also clear when exactly the Gundam was stolen by Char. Was it, the same point when Amuro initially was going to pilot it, or is it like a point later in the timeline? Because if that's the case, then it may well be that Amuro exists, or that he was killed for Char to take the Gundam. But it's clear that this is Universal Century, but a different version of it. That last paragraph also talks about Amate and Nyan, who are kind of the 2 main leads of this series, but it also talks about Shuji. And one of the most interesting parts that it mentions here is that he is piloting the Red Gundam. It does kind of make it clear through other little bits as well, which we'll probably talk about soon, that he kind of shows up with that and it sends everything into a spiral. So that's of course going to be a major part of the story. Moving on though, we've got some mobile suit designs to talk about, starting off with the Red Gundam. Here is the kind of synopsis surrounding this. It was originally a mobile suit of the Federation Army, but was captured by Char after he became aware of the development plans, and was subsequently painted red and became his favourite suit. Towards the end of the war, it suffered a Psycom U accident that wiped out half of Solomon Fortress and went missing along with Char. After the war, Shuji appears in a Red Gundam that appears in Side 6, and together with Amate, they take part in a clan battle. Now, before we dive deeper into that information, let's actually take a look at the designs themselves. So, of course, you can see the Red Gundam over here, and it's got these kind of funnel bits which were actually seen in the trailer in one of the clan battles, where basically the main mobile suit from this series is fighting against them in the air. So it's clear that the Red Gundam is involved, and of course it is kind of typical Char colours, where it's pinkish red colour that we do see in the original Gundam series, whether that's on his Gelgoog, whether that's on the Z-Gok, or whether that is on his Zaku 2. Similar kind of colour scheme there. It does have a little bit of purple, which I don't remember purple ever being a part of Char's colour scheme, but I could be wrong there. And then over to the left, we do have a look at the original Gundam, which is of course in that typical red, white, blue, yellow, and white. You can kind of see from these designs, this is very clearly Evangelion looking, which makes sense because it's got the same mecha designer as that series. So, you know, there's a lot of people complaining about this and it doesn't look like Gundam, it looks too overly complicated and all this kind of stuff. I don't really feel that way. Like, to me, there's not like a strict kind of design choice for making a Gundam. I think they look really cool though. They look kind of intense, almost look quite evil and quite scary, which I think is a very cool idea to go with. Looking at that synopsis, there's things there that obviously do stand out. Now, it is like, when I'm reading this, it does sound like Char essentially stole the Gundam straight away, because it's saying he became aware of the development plan, so that implies that, you know, it was still in development when he became aware of it, and then basically took it probably at the same time that Amuro was originally supposed to pilot it in the original Gundam series, so around that time. The other bit that's very interesting is about this Psycommute incident that wiped out half of Solomon Fortress. Now, Solomon Fortress, for those that don't know, that is where the final battle of the 1 Year War takes place. The end of the original Gundam series, also the third movie within the trilogy, whichever way you watched it. So presumably, a lot of the events that took place within the original Gundam series do play out within this timeline as well, because it says, you know, towards the end of the war, and Solomon Fortress, that is towards the end of the 1 Year War in the original series. So it kind of makes sense there, and it does seem like this is kind of the finality of that. And of course, the biggest thing there is the fact that Char goes missing. In many ways, it's playing out in a very similar way to the original Gundam series, but of course, instead of Amuro being the pilot of the Gundam, you've got Char instead. And now you have Shuji showing up 5 years later with this mobile suit. The implication is there that maybe not all this stuff got destroyed. You know, this couldn't show back up. That means that Char could also show back up. So will we see Char in this series? I think it's a very real possibility. You don't set up like the implication of a mystery surrounding what happened to Char without the kind of intention of bringing him back, or at least explaining whereabouts he is. To me, the fact that they've mentioned Char a hell of a lot, not only within that synopsis, but also, you know, talking about these mobile suits, I think Char will probably be in this series. I think there's a very, very good chance of it by the sounds of it. Moving on though, we've got this other mobile suit, Gundam Rise Heavy. I'll go over the details for it now. A new mobile suit belonging to the Sharia Bull unit. Its development code name was Alpha Killer. It's equipped with the Omega Psycommute, the development of which was banned after the war, and only special new types can activate it. Amate pilots it in the first episode, and it becomes her beloved machine after that. Now again, there's a lot of really interesting details to go over with this. First off though, we do have the design. Looks very cool. I mean, you look at the kind of initial designs, looks kind of unicorn-esque, especially like the kind of closed up nature of it. So I think that's really cool. There's probably a little bit of inspiration there. But then you look at the full color version of it, also looks really cool, and I do like the look of it. It reminds me a little bit of the Mark 6 or Unit 6, whatever it's called from Evangelion, especially facial design anyway. And also in some ways, it kind of reminds me of a Gundam Age, like especially the chest area. Looking at the description to go along with it though, probably the most interesting thing to come out of this is the Omega Psycommute thing, which, you know, of course, like I mentioned just before, the Psycommute accident happening at Solomon Fortress, which thus led to kind of the banning of that. So it's a similar type of situation to what you have in Witch from Mercury with the banning of Gundam, but also very similar to nuclear weaponry being banned within the Gundam Seed timeline. And the implication with all of this like information stuff that we have here about Amate piloting in the first episode, this is probably what then becomes the Zcax. It starts off as this Gundam Rise Heavy, probably gets damaged in some way, and then it's, you know, kind of fixed up and becomes the Zcax. And if you look at the design, you can see how this could translate towards the Zcax. Like, you put the designs side by side, which I will throw up on screen now. They do look somewhat similar, and you can definitely see how one could get damaged and then be turned into this other thing. Worth knowing as well that it does state that only special new types can activate this suit, which very much implies that Amate is a new type. It also confirms the fact that new types are a thing in this series, which you would expect if it's Universal Sentry, but yeah, it's like cool to have that confirmation that, yeah, this is going to be a series that delves into new types, and they're going to be called new types as opposed to, like, you know, seed bearers or celestial beings or anything like that. It is, you know, using that classic new type of term to describe those with special abilities. There we have it though, that is all of the leaks that we have to delve into today. Stay tuned because I will have a trailer breakdown for the trailer, especially with this information that comes out. It definitely gives more context to some of the things we see in that trailer, so I'll have a lot more to talk about there, but this is just kind of my overall thoughts on some of these leaks. It's a recipe for success almost, and I really hope that it does pay off because like I said, there's potential there for this to be truly something unique, special, and great. Before I get out of here, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you are a fan of Mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. And like I said earlier, head on down to the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts on this news. What do you think of this being an alternate version of Universal Sentry? And if the potential is there, would you like to see any characters from that timeline show up as alternate versions within this series? And also, would you like to see any particular mobile suits from Universal Sentry show up here in alternate Evangelionified versions? Thank you once again for tuning into Mecha Chat today. I'll see you guys next time.